The narrative of Jesse Mack Butler is often framed through the lens of a prominent athlete facing a fall from grace. But for the victims LS and KS, the story begins in a place far more visceral and terrifying than a courtroom. It begins with the clinical reality of physical trauma and the digital evidence of a predator's pride. While the public was initially shocked by the 11 felony counts, a newly revealed detail from the civil lawsuit affidavit adds a chilling dimension. Jesse Butler reportedly recorded himself on his mobile phone while choking one of his victims until she lost consciousness. This was not a moment of youthful indiscretion. It was a documented act of near-lethal dominance. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. For LS, the trauma was not just psychological. The physical damage inflicted by Butler was so severe that it required medical intervention beyond a standard exam. According to statements from her mother, Amber Selvey, the strangulation resulted in significant internal damage to LS' neck, necessitating surgery to repair the trauma. This matches the harrowing assessment from medical professionals that during these attacks, the victim was within 30 seconds of losing her life. The presence of a video recording suggests a level of premeditation and a lack of remorse that stands in stark contrast to the rehabilitation narrative later presented by the defense. LS, who is a deaf and hard-of-hearing individual, navigated her education with an individualized education plan, IEP, designed to accommodate her disability. This vulnerability makes the reported 6-week relationship with Butler, from January to March 2024, even more predatory. The assaults began almost immediately, occurring in locations as mundane as a Walmart parking lot. It was there that Butler allegedly forced himself onto her, pinning her down and applying pressure to her throat with such force that a doctor later told her she nearly died. The way this abuse came to light highlights the fear and isolation the victims felt. It wasn't a school counselor or a teacher who first broke the silence. It was a youth worker at a church who overheard LS and another victim, KS, discussing Butler's abuse in September 2024. The youth worker gave the girls an ultimatum: report it within 24 hours, or the worker would be legally forced to report it themselves. On September 12th, LS stood in the office of Assistant Principal Tommy Grant and detailed a nightmare of sexual assault, strangulation, stalking, and harassment. However, the response LS received inside that office was the first indicator that the system was not built to protect her. School Resource Officer SRO Paul Blankenship was called into the meeting. Instead of offering the protection of the law, Blankenship allegedly met LS' claims with immediate skepticism. The lawsuit alleges that Blankenship told LS she would need to get her story straight with the other victim and insisted she undergo an interview at the Civil Center for Child Advocacy to make sure she was telling the truth. From the very first hour of disclosure, the burden of proof was placed entirely on the shoulders of a traumatized 16-year-old girl. Despite the gravity of the 11 felony counts that followed rape, forcible sodomy, and domestic assault and battery, the arrest of Jesse Butler at his home in March 2025 felt to many like a formality rather than a reckoning. Body camera footage captured the scene. Butler tearing up his handcuffs were applied, while his mother, Jackie Butler, casually discussed bond arrangements with the detectives. The bond was set at a mere $25,000, a price tag for freedom that seemed incongruous with the 78 years of prison time the charges carried. As Butler was led away, his mother's parting words were not of reprimand, but of comfort. "Stay strong, Dad's on his way, we're coming to get you." The stage was set for a prosecution that the community expected would lead to a lengthy prison sentence. The evidence was there: the medical records of surgery, the victim statements, and the alleged digital recordings of the acts themselves. The public waited for the law to take its course, believing that 11 felony counts against an adult-charged defendant would result in an adult-sized punishment. But as the summer of 2025 approached, a series of closed-door negotiations began to dismantle the 78-year shadow. The victims were about to find out that in the town of Stillwater, who your father is might matter more than what the evidence says. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. In the tight-knit community of Stillwater, Oklahoma, the name Butler carries weight, particularly within the hallowed grounds of high school and collegiate sports. This influence became the focal point of a federal lawsuit that suggests Jesse Butler's lenient sentence wasn't just a judicial fluke, but the result of a protective institutional shell. Jesse's father, Mack Butler, was not just a concerned parent. He was the assistant athletic director for Stillwater Public Schools. Beyond the local district, Mack Butler held significant ties to the Oklahoma State University, OSU, football program, having served as its director of operations. In a town where OSU football is the cultural and economic heartbeat, such a position grants a level of social capital that is difficult to overstate. The federal lawsuit filed by LS and her family alleges that the school district acted with deliberate indifference because of these connections. The core of the accusation is that the school didn't just fail to protect LS. They actively worked to shield the son of an athletic department executive. This perceived favoritism reportedly began the moment LS reported the abuse. While the school district had a policy to investigate reports of sexual misconduct, the lawsuit claims that in Butler's case, no such internal investigation was ever performed. No staff were notified, and no steps were taken to separate the predator from the victim within the hallways of Stillwater High. The conflict of interest allegedly extended to the highest levels of school security. SRO Paul Blankenship, the officer who originally told LS to get her story straight, was later revealed to have a personal conflict. According to the lawsuit, when LS parents complained to Blankenship's supervisor, Lieutenant Cluck, they were told that Blankenship was friends with the Butlers and that they should not hold SRO Blankenship's conduct against him. For a victim seeking safety, the realization that the armed officer in her school was a friend of her attacker's family was a devastating blow to her sense of security. The institutional protection allegedly reached the principal's office as well. When LS' mother, Amber Selvey, secured an emergency protective order, EPO, against Butler, she expected the school to enforce it. The district's existing policy was to enter such orders into a database so that teachers and staff could ensure the two students remained separated. However, Principal Walter Howell reportedly chose a different path. According to the lawsuit, Howell admitted he intentionally kept the EPO out of the school's database. His reasoning, as stated in the filing, was that he did not want to interfere with Butler's opportunity to receive an education. This decision effectively prioritized the educational experience of a student charged with 11 violent felonies over the physical and emotional safety of the girl he allegedly strangled. The result was a school environment where LS was forced to walk the same halls as her abuser, never knowing if a teacher was even aware that a court had ordered Butler to stay away from her. When LS' deaf and hard-of-hearing specialist noticed her grade slipping and reached out to the family, the specialist was shocked to learn about the abuse and the EPO. The school administration had kept her entirely in the dark. The lawsuit describes a coordinated campaign of harassment that Butler was allegedly allowed to conduct from within the school. It claims Butler used other students to pressure LS into dropping her claims, and that school officials watched as he stalked her in the parking lot. When LS was pulled out of class for a safety plan meeting, the lawsuit alleges the process was used to embarrass her rather than protect her. Principal Howell reportedly insisted on attending a meeting he wasn't supposed to be in, leaving the door open so that passersby could hear the intimate details of LS' trauma. Meanwhile, the SRO, the one person required to be there to coordinate safety, didn't even show up. The school's bias reached a breaking point during one of the most public events of the year, Senior Signing Day. In front of the entire administration, Butler allegedly made a move that proved he felt untouchable. When the school finally intervened, they made a choice that left the community wondering whose side they were really on. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. The breaking point for the Selvey family occurred during an event meant to celebrate student achievement, Senior Signing Day in February 2025. This was a school-sponsored event held on the basketball court, attended by the administration, staff, and the SRO. According to the federal lawsuit, Jesse Butler used the event as a platform for intimidation. In full view of the principal and multiple staff members, Butler reportedly approached within 5 feet of LS, staring her down in a direct violation of the emergency protective order. Despite the clear violation, not a single school administrator or employee stepped in to protect LS. It took a student, one of LS' cheer teammates, to alert a coach to what was happening. When the school finally took action, The response was a perfect metaphor for the entire case. They did not remove Butler, the offender who had violated a court order. Instead, they removed LS from the court. The victim was the one marginalized and ushered away, while the defendant was allowed to remain and enjoy the festivities. This incident was allegedly part of a broader, coordinated campaign of harassment that extended beyond the school gates. The lawsuit claims that Mack and Jackie Butler were fully aware their son was stalking and intimidating LS but took zero corrective action. Instead of seeking help for Jesse, who reportedly had a history of violent outbursts, including slamming his head against walls in the baseball clubhouse, the parents are accused of enabling his behavior. The lawsuit argues that because Mack Butler was a school official, his failure to act was not just a parental failure, but an institutional one. The psychological toll on LS was immense. The lawsuit details how she was eventually banned from attending school baseball games so that Jesse Butler could continue to play without the distraction of his victim being present. This disparate treatment, denying a victim access to school events so the perpetrator could maintain his status as a star athlete, is a central pillar of the Title IX claim filed against the district. It suggests a system where the athletic brand of the school was protected at the expense of a disabled student's right to an education free from fear. The school's defense of Butler reportedly continued even after his arrest and the implementation of his probation. The lawsuit alleges that Principal Walter Howell has continued to attend football games during the fall 2025 semester, where he allegedly repeatedly stares at and harasses LS and her family. If true, this suggests a culture of intimidation that didn't end with the plea deal, but shifted into a new phase of retaliation against the family for refusing to stay silent. The Selvey family's frustration with the local system eventually led them to bypass the school board and the local police department entirely. They looked toward the federal court, filing a lawsuit that names 9 distinct causes of action. This move was not just about seeking damages. It was about forcing the discovery process to unearth the internal communications of Stillwater Public Schools. They want to know exactly what was said in those private meetings between the principal, the SRO, and the Butler family. The legal strategy shifted from seeking criminal justice, which had been effectively neutralized by the youthful offender status, to seeking institutional accountability. The lawsuit seeks to prove that the city of Stillwater and the school district are directly liable for the actions of their employees. They are targeting the very core of the respondent superior legal doctrine, arguing that the harassment LS suffered happened while these officials were carrying out their duties. As the federal lawsuit gains steam, the criminal case has hit a new, unexpected snag. While the school fights the civil claims, a victim's rights attorney is attempting a legal Hail Mary in state court that could do the one thing everyone thought was impossible: force Jesse Butler to finally admit to what he did. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. The federal lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Oklahoma is more than a list of grievances. It is a meticulously structured legal attack on systemic negligence. The 9 claims for relief target every entity that failed LS. The first and perhaps most significant is the Title IX violation. Title IX is a federal law that prohibits sex-based discrimination in any school receiving federal funds. By alleging that the abuse and subsequent harassment were so pervasive and objectively offensive that they deprived LS of her education, the lawyers are threatening the district's federal funding. They argue that by banning LS from games and failing to investigate Butler, the school essentially discriminated against her based on her status as a victim of sexual violence. The second claim focuses on equal protection under Section 1983, a civil rights statute. This argues that the school district treated LS differently than other students, specifically by prioritizing Butler's opportunity to receive an education over her safety. The lawsuit then moves into intentional infliction of emotional distress, claiming the actions of the principal and the SRO were atrocious and utterly intolerable in a civilized society. These aren't just words. They are specific legal standards that require the family to prove the school's conduct went beyond all possible bounds of decency. Furthermore, the lawsuit seeks to hold the parents, Mack and Jackie Butler, liable for negligence. To win this, the Selveys must prove the parents knew or had reason to know their son was a danger and failed to intervene. With the allegations of Jesse Butler recording his attacks and his history of clubhouse violence, The family argues the parents had ample warning. While the civil suit seeks at least $75,000 in damages, the threshold for federal jurisdiction, the ultimate goal is the comfort, enjoyment, and society LS lost during her teenage years. But even as this federal case moves forward, a parallel battle continues in state court regarding Massey's law. Attorney Rachel Bussett, representing the victims, is fighting to have the plea deal vacated. Her argument is simple. The Youthful Offender Act is meant for rehabilitation, but true rehabilitation requires an admission of guilt. Because Butler pled no contest, he has never officially admitted to the rapes or the strangulation. Bussett's motion argues that the victim's right to a meaningful consultation was violated. If she succeeds, it could lead to a corrective hearing where the court could modify Butler's probation conditions. This could include unsealing protective orders or even reclassifying him as an adult if his rehabilitation is found to be a sham. The goal is accountability, which the families feel has been entirely absent from a sentence that consists only of therapy and community service. The Stillwater Public School District, the city, and the Butlers have yet to formally respond to the federal allegations in court, but the silence from the institutions is being filled by the voices of the community. State legislators are now looking at the loophole in Oklahoma law that treats a near-fatal strangulation as a discretionary youthful offense while treating murder as a mandatory adult crime. The Jesse Butler case has become a catalyst for a potential legislative overhaul of the Youthful Offender Act. As of late 2025, Jesse Butler remains on probation. His record will be sealed if he completes his program, effectively erasing the 11 felony counts from his history. However, the federal lawsuit ensures that his actions and the actions of those who protected him are now a matter of public record. For LS and her family, the fight is no longer just about one boy in a courtroom. It is about ensuring that no other student in Stillwater is ever told that their safety is less important than an athlete's opportunity. The case of LSV, Stillwater Public Schools, is set to move into the discovery phase, where emails, text messages, and internal memos will finally be brought to light. The stunning twist in this story isn't just about whether Jesse Butler goes to jail. It's about whether the institutions that protected him will finally be forced to pay for their silence. The story of Jesse Mack Butler is a stark reminder that the law is only as strong as the people who enforce it. Whether through the federal courts or the enforcement of Massey's law, the families of LS and KS are proving that while a prominent family can buy a plea deal, they cannot buy silence. The true verdict is still to come. And as always, you've been watching True Crime Story Vault, where every story is told with facts, clarity, and respect for the people affected. If you want to see more fact-based true crime stories like this one, make sure you subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, remember, the truth is never buried.